I remember when we used to travel on this road years ago, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there were no decent stops barring one or two. You literally had to plan your meal stops well in advance, leave alone a sumptuous meaty meal like this. Kal soup. Mutton fry, fantastic. Well, that's a delicious piece of meat. There's a bit of fat too, that's holding on to the meat. The kheema is quite coarsely ground, which is nice, so you can actually bite into the meat. I think it's a typical onion tomato sort of a base for the masala. I want to mop that Naati Koli Saaru with my neer dosa, with the tellao. And since the batter of this dosae is quite thin, the consistency of water, we also call it tellao in South Canara. Namaskara folks, this is Kripal Amanna, Gourmet on the Road, and you're watching Food Lovers TV. So we're on the Mangalore highway. Bengaluru is in this direction, and if you want to go to Mangaluru, Hassan, Chanrayapatna is that way. So we've decided to stop here at VAISHALI Yediyur. It's a Monday morning, not too many travelers on the route, and therefore this car park is a little empty. I visited them a couple of years ago when they just opened. There were quite a few people here. We tasted a few things, but I was on my motorcycle ride. So today, since we were passing in this direction, I said let's stop once again and taste some of the dishes that they have to offer. So there are many eateries on this route now, but this is one of those places where you can also indulge in some non-vegetarian dishes in addition to the standard idli, vade, dosae. Namaskara. ಏನಿದೆ
ನಾವು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬಿರಿಯಾನಿ
ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ನಾಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, 11 o'clock ಕ್ಲೋಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಂತರ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಈಗ ಲಂಚ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತಲ್ಲ,
ಓಕೆ,
ಈ ದೋಸೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ 4 o'clock ನಂತರ ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ.
So the last time around when I came here, I tasted the keema dosae, which was quite good. ನೀರ್ ದೋಸೆ ಕೊಡಿ, ಕೈಮಾ ಗೊಜ್ಜು ಕೊಡಿ,
ನಾಟಿ ಕೋಳಿ ಮಸಾಲ,
ಅದು ಸಾರು ಟೈಪ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಸೊ ಅದೊಂದು ಕೊಡಿ.
ಮಟನ್ ಫ್ರೈ
ಅಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮದು ಗ್ರೇವಿ ಅದು ಪುನಃ ಫ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ?
ಯಾ, ಗ್ರೇವಿ ಮಸಾಲೆ ಹಾಕಿ ಥಿಕ್ನೆಸ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ.
ಓಕೆ, ಒಂದು ಫ್ರೈ ಕೊಡಿ. ಸೊ ಬಿರಿಯಾನಿ ನನಗೆ 2 ಕೂಡ ಕೊಡಿ.
ಒಂದು ಚಿಕನ್, ಒಂದು ಮಟನ್.
It's always a little unnerving when you arrive at a restaurant and you're the only person around. But of course, that's due to no fault of theirs. This is a highway eatery, so they're dependent purely on highway traffic. And today is a Monday, it's about 11:15 in the morning. So it's that in between time, people have had breakfast, but it's too early for lunch. And therefore, this eatery too is not crowded at all. We are on our way somewhere else, and so I'm timing my journey accordingly.
Naati rasam.
Naati rasam. Adu soup illa, kal soup illa ivattu.
Kal soup ide. Kodada?
ನನಗೆ ಬರೀ ಇದು ಕೊಡಿ, ಏನು ಪ್ಲೇನ್ ಸೂಪ್ ಕೊಡಿ, ನನಗೆ ಕಾಲು ಬೇಡ. ಹಾಂ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ. ಓ ಮೈ ಗಾಡ್, ದಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಸ್ಪೈಸ್ ಬಾಂಬ್. ತಣ್ಣಗೆ ಕೊಡೋದು?
ಅದು ಹಾಗೆ ಸರ್, ಅದು ಕೋಲ್ಡ್ ಅದು ಫಿಲ್ಟರ್ ವಾಟರ್ ಹಾಕೋದು.
ಅಂದರೆ ಕೋಲ್ಡೇ ಕೊಡೋದು ಇದು?
ಅದು ಹಾಗೆ. ಶುಂಠಿ, ಬೆಳ್ಳುಳ್ಳಿ, ಟೊಮಾಟೊ, ಹಸಿಮೆಣಸಿಗೆ ಚಿಕ್ಕದು ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಸ್ಪೈಸಿ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ.
The rasam was very hot, not hot temperature wise, in fact it's rather cold, but heat wise, and I bit into a chili. I asked him why is it served cold. He said it's more like a welcome drink that we serve our customers. So it's like a cold rasam. So if you like things spicy, well, you'll enjoy it. But I remember last time around that we quite enjoyed this kal soup. The flavors are quite rounded, and that's what I remember from the last time too. So there are some kal soups that you will taste where the flavors will be more animal-like, more gamey, but this one is quite mellow. Just somewhere at the back, you get a bit of the distinct note of the trotters. The soup's not extremely hot, it's just a little over lukewarm, but certainly makes for a appetizing slurp before the other dishes come to our table. Plenty of the warmth that I'm tasting from the pepper, and thankfully that pepper is washing away some of that green chili heat. I'm told they use a small chili in this. I think it's a bird eye chili. And that chili is extremely, extremely spicy. And if you want to cut through some of the warmth, well, that's where this squeeze of lime will come in handy. That lime certainly cuts through the pepper warmth. Mutton fry, fantastic. Well, the mutton fry is here. Some 5 or 6 pieces of meat. Naati Koli Saaru. Last time kuda taste ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೆ ನಾನು. ಇದು chicken biryani. Kheema gojju. Mutton fry. Typically they cook the meat in a curry or a kurma of sort, and then they take the meat out and then they toss it again with some spices, plenty of curry leaf. I can see some garlic as well, onions, etc. And that's what makes for a fry. We also have a keema gojju that we quite enjoyed the last time around. Bisi ide idu. So although Vaishali here in Yediyur is only 2 years old, but they have a tradition that goes back many years. The first outlet of Vaishali was in Chanrayapatna. It still is in Chanrayapatna and opened about 10 years ago. I was looking forward actually, Barta illi. Adu khali dosae. They have a very nice khali dosae that they make with the rajmudi rice. And that khali dosae goes very well with that Naati Koli Saaru. Rajmudi rice alla nimdu khali dosae li hogudu solpa. Kempakki, Hasaninda. So in fact, I'm also going to post links to those 2 episodes, 2 vlogs. Those are essentially moto vlogs, but there's a fair bit of eating that we've done here. I'm going to post those links in the description below. So the other dishes that I would recommend here is definitely that keema dosae and that khali dosae with the saru. That's what we enjoyed the last time around. For today we have the neer dosae because this is what they serve during lunch. Let's begin with that mutton fry. There's some tomatoes too that go into this fry. The meat is soft yet has a bit of a bite. Quite nice. You're tasting the crunch of the onion somewhere in there. You're tasting a bit of the tomato. Well, that's a delicious piece of meat. There's a bit of fat too that's holding on to the meat. Nice, flavorful, soft, and I like the bits that I'm crunching into. The bits of the garlic, a little bit of the onion, a little bit of the tomato, some coriander stalk somewhere in there. Certainly is a tasty mutton fry. Very nice, very enjoyable. When I saw nobody here, I was wondering, to Vaishali. And you know, when you don't see people in a restaurant, you feel a little nervous. But one bite of that mutton fry, and I know all is well, and all will be well. Some of that keema gojju. There's some peas as well that go into it. The keema is quite coarsely ground, which is nice, so you can actually bite into the meat. I think it's a typical onion tomato sort of a base of the masala. There's also a bit of heft that I'm tasting in that keema, and perhaps it's also with some fat that goes into it that makes it quite rich. I can feel its weight on my tongue, and you can also see it in the combination of that oil and fat that's floating a bit in this keema gojju. Having said that, it makes for an enjoyable dish here at Vaishali. Also a bit of the sourness that you're tasting that perhaps comes from the tomato. I can see strands of the tomato that are rendered into that gojju. Quite tasty. The mutton fry, love the flavor of the fat that I'm tasting in this piece of meat. And this time around, some of that Naati Koli Saaru. Just get some of the gravy, nice and thick. The last time around, I remember soaking that khali dosae, the set dosae, in that gravy. I want to mop that Naati Koli Saaru with my neer dosa, with the tellau. Tellau in Kannada also means very thin, and since the batter of this dosa is quite thin, the consistency of water, we also call it tellau in South Canada. That's a gravy that's quite creamy. I think there's plenty of coconut milk that goes into that. I can also taste a bit of the fenugreek somewhere in there. Now for some of that Naati Koli. The meat is juicy, has soaked up the flavor of that curry rather well. They also do some tandoor and North Indian and I think a few other dishes as well. I have always tasted the Naati fare here and I think that's what Vaishali is famous for. I'm quite enjoying that Saaru. One more piece of the chicken. The masala too is quite punchy. I'm tasting a bit of the edge of salt. But when you taste it with the neer dosae, the flavors even out. When it comes to Naati Koli, you have to always taste it with a bit of the skin because that's where the flavor is when it comes to the chicken. Very good. The meat too has cooked rather well. Naati Koli will have a bit of a bite, but it isn't chewy in the least. Of the three dishes that I tasted, my favorite was definitely that mutton fry and that Naati Koli curry. And I think with the neer dosae, it makes for a great combination. The keema gojju too is nice and I think if you love your keema, you'll enjoy it. But I can certainly taste a bit of the weight of some of that fat. So I guess you have to have it when it's supremely hot. So as it cools down, some of the oil, some of the fat coagulates and that's what you taste a bit on your tongue. But I guess when most people come here, you'll probably order one of this, share it amongst 3 or 4 people and therefore is also a worthy contender to be ordered here. Let me go for a small piece of the fry whilst I wait for that biryani to arrive. What's nice are all these little bits of the masala which complement that meat rather well. So good. Thank you. The biryani is here. I think my plate has the flavors of all the dishes that I tasted. I want to focus on that biryani all by itself. So therefore a fresh plate. I love the flex of the masala. Somewhere in there I'm also tasting a bit of the jeerige. I think there's some jeera powder that probably goes on that masala when they do the fry. And that's what I'm tasting also. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹೆಸರೇನು?
ಸತೀಶ್ ಶೆಟ್ಟಿ ಅಂತ.
Satish Shetty. Rice ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಹಾಕಿ. One piece ಹಾಕಿ. I can see some Marat Moggu in that. It's always fascinating when they scoop out the rice from that biryani pot because you also see some of the elements that are hidden within that pot. So today I've not gone into the kitchen, so I've not got the making of this biryani. But that biryani pot here on my table does well to tell you what all has gone into it. So for example, there's some cardamom right here, some green cardamom that I can spot. There's a bay leaf. There's also the kapok butt, the Marat Moggu. And I'm sure as I taste this biryani, I will also discover some of the other things, some of the other spices that go in. I think this is some cinnamon. I think there's also some kasuri meaty, the dried fenugreek that goes into the biryani, perhaps as it's finished. ಇದು ರೈಸ್ ಏನು ಇದು ಲಾಂಗ್ ಗ್ರೇನ್ ರೈಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಂಚೆ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ರೈಸ್ ಇತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಮಟನಿಗೆ ಜೀರಾ ಸಾಂಬಾರ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಬಾಸ್ಮತಿ ದ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಐ ಕೇಮ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಐ ಟ್ರೈಡ್ ದ ಮಟನ್ ಬಿರಿಯಾನಿ ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಜೀರಾ ಸಾಂಬಾರ್ ರೈಸ್ ಇತ್ತು ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ಪೆಸೆಬೆಲ್ ದೇ ನಾಟ್ ಟು ಮೆನಿ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ಮಂಡೇ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಫುಲ್ ಅವರು ದೇ ಆರ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಆನ್ ದಿ ಹೈವೇ ಓನ್ಲಿ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ನೋ ಟೌನ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ವೇ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕಮ್ ಸೊ ಆಸ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ದೇ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಫಾರ್ ಅ ಮೀಲ್. Anyway, enough talking, let's taste that biryani. The biryani feels a tad dry to my touch, but is quite flavorful. The biryani flavors are quite punchy, but the last time too I remembered, I thought it suffered a slight overedge of salt and that's what I'm tasting in this time too. The masala is quite potent and makes its flavor known just in the rice that I'm tasting. There's also plenty of green chilies that go into it. I'm sure there's a green masala ಹಾಕ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ coriander, mint ಮತ್ತೆ green chili. ಪಾಲಕ್ ಹಾಕ್ತಾರಾ?
ಪಾಲಕ್ ಹಾಕಲ್ಲ. ಟೇಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಸರ್. ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ.
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ.
ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಸರಿ ಇದ್ದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಿಮಗೆ.
Last time ನೆನಪಿದೆ? Well, he remembered that the last time around when I came and tasted the biryani, I thought the mutton was a little tough. So this time around, the mutton that I tasted in the fry at least, the pieces were soft and juicy. So I was hoping that I could taste the mutton biryani, but perhaps I will return for that. But the one thing that's consistent between then and now is the fact that I personally feel that there's a slight edge of the salt. Let's taste now the chicken. I can taste some of the flavor of the aromats. I can taste the star anise in there somewhere, some of the cloves, perhaps the cinnamon. I find the rice a tad dry to the touch. That is the only grouse that I may have, other than the slight edge of salt in this chicken biryani. But flavor-wise, it's a biryani that does its job. Taste some with the sherwa now. There's a bit of a heat that probably comes from the red chilies in that, but I think even the sherwa suffers from a slight excess of the salt, and I think that mosuru bhaji will come in handy. I remember when we used to travel on this road years ago, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there were no decent stops barring one or two. You literally had to plan your meal stops well in advance. Leave alone a sumptuous meaty meal like this, you wouldn't find even a decent breakfast on this route, maybe about 12 or 15 years ago. Of course, the only place that I remember then was Parimala in Kunigal, and that time the highway passed through Kunigal. But so much has changed since then. Not only do you have some very fine eateries on this route, and we've reviewed many of them, you should definitely explore them on Food Lovers TV. We've reviewed Mayura, Dhruvatare, we've reviewed Pakashala, we've reviewed Swati Delicacy, and one or two others. But when it comes to meaty fare, things like the Naati Koli Saaru, the kheema gojju, or the biryani, or that mutton fry, Hotel VAISHALI here in Yediyur is definitely the place to stop at. I certainly feel that the cook could perhaps be a little light-handed with the salt. Having said that, I've quite enjoyed my brunch stop here at VAISHALI. Of the dishes that I tasted, I would certainly recommend that mutton fry, that Naati Koli Saaru with that neer dosae, and also the keema gojju. The dishes that I've tasted earlier, well, that keema dosae is certainly a must not miss. And also the next time around, do try their khali dosae. And not to forget that piping hot, that's what I tasted the last time around, kal soup too. So I hope you've enjoyed this short and snappy meaty brunch here at Hotel VAISHALI Yediyur on the Mangalore highway. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, stay strong, and happy eating. Perhaps a little more of that Koli Saaru with a tiny piece of the neer dosae. Well, the dishes that we tasted, neer dosae, the chicken biryani, the Naati Koli masala, the mutton fry, and the keema gojju, round up to 1417 rupees. The dishes that we ordered, I think will happily feed 2 or 3 people, perhaps with an extra portion of the dosae. Thank you. If you'd like to support the work that we do at Food Lovers TV, do consider joining our membership community on YouTube by hitting the join button below or on the home page. You could pledge a nominal sum and receive special privileges like behind the scenes footage, shoot updates, access to live Q&As, and a lot more. You could support us on a Patreon page as well. For more info, check out the links in the description below. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment below. Happy eating.